Mark Lackey is here as CHF Capital Markets Executive Vice President, and you have a prop today.
Yeah, I do, Pat. I brought in some zinc from Turkey. It's kind of interesting. You can kind of see the high quality this is. This is very, very high quality zinc.
Point that towards that camera over there.
Yeah, there we are.
Show me the area that's zinc,
this
that
is all
gray
zinc
area.
right here, yeah, and there, and it's full of it inside here.
It almost
zinc,
looks like the like marble, the lines in marble.
Yeah, that's a good point, Pat. That's very interesting. And as you were asking me before, there are some volcanic areas in Turkey. I don't know if this came from one of the volcanic areas or not, but it does look a lot like the marble, as you say, but quite different, because I've looked at gold and silver before and copper, and they're all kind of obvious. And when I saw this, I thought to myself, geez, yeah, that is zinc. But I've seen other zinc formations that look somewhat different, had a lot more lead in it and so on. But this is, you can see a little bit of lead here, but this is largely pretty pure zinc.
Okay, and very textured rock.
That's right.
What is zinc used for?
Well, the major thing, Pat, is in galvanizing. So you have zinc in your cars, in the steel in your cars, because that prevents rust. It's used also in building materials, so infrastructure builds. So if you're building bridges, you're building pipelines, anything that requires kind of corrosive issues, zinc's used in. And of course, one of the big areas that's grown in the last few years, Pat, is they add zinc in a lot of countries where people are zinc deficient. And so it's put into fertilizer in places like Pakistan and India, and it's had a really positive impact, Pat, on getting rid of stomach ailments for people in those third world countries, in those rising countries. So that's been terrific, because you're not going to see a whole lot of zinc deficient people here in Canada, although it does happen. But it's a problem, because it's it can become quite a serious intestinal problem.
Where do you find it? Is it hard to find? Is it localized? Or?
Well, typically, Pat, most zinc, interestingly enough, a lot of it's found, of course, with other base metals, copper. Many times some of the silver mines in Mexico have a fair amount of zinc with them. So if the silver price doesn't really recover, we're not going to see as much zinc supply come out of some of those countries. That's another interesting aspect, that pure zinc plays are harder to find. They tend to be in places like New Brunswick, Missouri, Turkey, Australia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Those are kind of the places where you tend to find more pure zinc plays, as opposed to ones that have maybe a lot more silver and copper, and zinc's more of the byproduct.
Didn't we just shut down the Brunswick mine?
That's correct, Pat, and it's on the supply side. We just did shut down the Brunswick mine. It's one of the reasons why we do like zinc, is because there's two other big mine closures coming in Lachine, which of course in Ireland, Century in Australia, and the new supply is not going to counteract all that supply that's been taken out of the market. So, you know, I got zinc at $1 at the end of last year. That's been traded at $1.01. I got $1.20 at the end of this year, $1.40 next year, $1.80 in 2017, because I don't see the supply keeping up with demand. Now, demand hasn't been quite as strong as it was.
They just reopen those mines? If they're shutting mines, if the price recovers,
no, the problem, Pat, is that they're physically mined out.
Oh, they're mined out.
They are literally mined out. So you make a valid point. There may be a few small ones that at $1.70, $1.80 will come back in, but the big guys are literally, the zinc's gone. So, I mean, they get to the point where there's literally no zinc left. They did more and more drilling, and that's it. You know, the zinc's exhausted. So it happens in some of these big mines.
Okay, so then if that's the supply side, what's inventory like?
Actually, that's another good point, Pat. Inventories are down about 20% in the last year. And so it's one of the reasons why, if you go back to the fall of 2013, you've had about a 20% move in zinc. And it hasn't sold off recently. I mean, copper's gotten pounded here in the last month. It's gone from 315 down to about 260.
Got the PhD in economics. It tells you that things are going to slow down.
Yeah, you know, I would say, Pat, to some degree that's true, but maybe not as highly. I find copper's not as highly correlated to GNP as it once was. So that tells me there's some other things going on. What I don't understand in copper, quite frankly, is with inventories going down as fast as they are, I don't know why the price is going down, be honest. I mean, that's one commodity I can't quite figure out. But zinc is performing the way you would expect. The price is staying fairly strong, and inventories are going down. Demand's growing reasonably well. It's not skyrocketing, but it's reasonable. But supply is the issue here, that unlike some of the other commodities where we've seen oversupply recently, we're seeing undersupply here in the zinc market.
Okay, just focusing on the demand. You said fertilizers, automotive.
Housing, which, okay, in China, that's slowing down.
Yeah, it was just.
But in the United States, the housing market's getting better. okay? And we are seeing some improvement in India's consumption. You know, we talked about India today with some people about how consumption has really been starting to rise in India in the home building area. They're building more infrastructure because they really don't have the infrastructure that China has in India. I mean, their electrical system needs a lot of work. So, and with the new president and the new government in India, that's one of the things where I think is going to help zinc here as we move forward.
Infrastructure. Okay, so let's go through some of your picks. One of them I've seen before, but let's get to Passenex Resources.
Yeah, Passenex, Pat. Well, this is
I don't think we've seen this
Passenex's
one.
zinc.
Oh, that's their actual zinc.
Their actual
you
zinc.
borrowed it?
Yeah, I borrowed it for the day, and they actually are producing, Pat. So this is a producer, solid junior company. We like Turkey, Pat, as a jurisdiction. It's very pro-mining. There are a number of Canadian companies in Turkey, especially in the gold side and some other the base metals. So it's not an area that Canadians are not familiar with. It's democratically elected government and about the 15th strongest economy in the world right now, 15th biggest economy in the world right now, and it's had pretty good growth. So they've got very good properties. They've just raised money recently, Pat, which in this market's not easy to do. So clearly there are market participants that like what Passenex has, because for a lot of juniors right now trying to raise money, I can tell you it's extremely difficult.
Well, okay, you make two interesting points. You've covered jurisdiction, Turkey,
right?
Good place to be. What about management? Maybe that's
the other point's a good one. I mean, Steve Williams, very solid individual, a lot of experience in zinc, and they put together an excellent management team here at Passenex, and I think that's one of the reasons why they found the properties they found in Turkey. They had relationships with some of the wealthier people in Turkey that had these mining operations, and so that's another very good point, Pat. It's a very strong management team. And they've met the milestones. They told me, you know, we're going to be producing, we're going to get more money, we're going to get to the next level, we're going to increase production, and they're doing everything they said they were going to do. And so I like that, because the one thing, Pat, there's not many small zinc companies left. I only follow about 8 or 9. That's all that I feel comfortable with, given jurisdictions and management issues. So when this market starts to turn on the small cap side for some companies like the zinc producers, this company is going to be out there in the forefront as one of the ones people are following.
I noticed it's listed, like the little CSX at the back. It's listed on the Canadian stock exchange.
Yeah, it is right now.
Does that make a difference? Or?
Yeah, well, I think in the short run, Pat, to Canadian investors, not so much. Maybe sometimes American investors would prefer if you're on the venture. But I mean, you got to.
Because it's associated closer with the TSX,
that's
the
right.
bigger one.
That's right. And so I think in the short run, the number of people that are following this are fine with being on that exchange. I think ultimately, you know, as they get bigger and they've got cash flow, they've got more capability to move exchanges if they so desire, and they probably will at some point. So I think
then you get more traction?
Yeah, you will get somewhat more. There's no question about it, because it is, I can tell you right now, if we're going to try to get U.S. guys to buy in Canada, it does help to be on the venture.
Okay. Vendetta, you and I have talked about before.
Yeah, that's right. And one that I really like, in fact, I ran into a mining analyst today coming into work who's from Australia. He knows this play. He said, that's a very interesting one. This is Mike Williams. So I guess if your name's Williams, you're on our show today.
Zinc team.
Yeah, that's right. And Mike, of course, has been successful in the past. He had a gold play in the Yukon that was taken out. We all made about, well, I didn't make 10 times my money because I didn't hold the stock long enough, but it was he's had this performance before, and now he's back into zinc because Mike recognizes, A, he sees where the zinc market's going, B, this property came open in Australia. There was an opportunity to acquire it. He's just done that. So this is a fairly new situation, Vendetta. But I like it because, Pat, you got infrastructure and you're close to China. So there's some big advantages that if you're going to be in the zinc market, being in Australia has certainly a lot of advantages. And I mean, he's already starting to see from his drilling that his resource looks like it's going to be pretty solid here and pretty strong. So again, another good leverage play on zinc.
But he's also got the relationships from the past that this could be a takeover candidate?
Well, absolutely, because people know, and people on Bay Street know him, and they know what he accomplished before. So you're right. I mean, he comes back in the zinc market, immediately people phone me up and say, oh, I see Mike's got a zinc play now. Right. I said, absolutely. So I think down the road, that's certainly a possibility. I think it's a bit early right now until he gets, kind of a bigger resource and moves it forward. Because quite frankly, at this point, I don't think anybody would want to get an offer when you're down at this level. You kind of wait until, you've got more on the table. Perhaps a PEA or whatever, and then, yeah, he could certainly get attraction. I think all of these could be attractive to a mid-cap player out there, for example.
Mm-hmm. And foreign mine.
Yeah, no, Pat, this is an interesting play. They just came up with a PEA in the last month.
We should explain what PEA
Yeah,
is.
preliminary economic assessment, and the PEA they have is very strong. What we're seeing here is, I think the zinc price, the zinc cost was something around 37 cents. Now they've got copper, silver, and gold as well, and obviously that's part of the mix. But this part of they're in eastern Saskatchewan, across from Flin Flon, Manitoba. So I like the jurisdiction. There's lots of infrastructure. There's a lot of positives about being in Saskatchewan, Pat. That's a great jurisdiction. And it's a very solid management team that's been around quite a while. So they have got, in my view, a very strong team. And as I said, the PEA takes them to the next level. We now see that this is an area that has a legitimate opportunity to become a mine, become maybe even perhaps a new mining area, new mining camp.
Any Williams with foreign?
No Williams before.
Mark, thanks so much. Mark Lackey joining us, CHF Capital Markets.